a sales call yesterday talking to a very large wealth management company. What got her most excited when I explained the process to her was that it was the ease of recruitment. One thing that could be quite cool to talk about is what roles we've seen be really, really successful in the Philippines and why we think they're successful.
When you have had conversations with, predominantly the upper management and businesses that are looking to implement offshoring, how much of a factor do you think it plays in the decision to offshore, in having the onshore team, buy into the process, be a part of the process, take to the process becoming a thing for that business? Like, how do you see that as an important kind of pre-offshoring criteria that needs to be checked off? Do you feel like that companies can start offshoring and then have onshore team kind of buy into it and see it as it's proven? Like, whereabouts in the process do you feel that buy-in has to be present in order for companies to hit the ground running with offshore teams?
I'd say it was a lot more. It was a lot more required, that buy-in, before COVID, pre-COVID. Because the workforce was so in person, right? It was such a water cooler kind of conversation. Have a whine about how many invoices have come in today and all that kind of stuff. Post COVID, the idea of working from home, working remotely is so much more widely accepted that having an offshore staff member isn't really a big thing anymore. We've passed the critical mass where it's not strange to say, hey, I've got a staff member in Manila, or hey, I've got a staff member in India who's, does this, and this for us. And that's at a larger enterprise level. I think SMEs and small businesses, it should nearly be a requirement that they have someone offshore, whether that be an executive assistant or just an assistant or someone like that. I think most people's first hire should be offshore. Purely to just practice their own management skills and having a staff member. Sometimes it's not as easy as one thinks to just manage a staff member in itself. So it depends on the business. I think it depends on and I think you'd agree, it depends on the stage of business, what department they're hiring, who's going to be managing them. There's a lot of dependent factors on it. But I think for your small business where there's one decision maker, it just makes sense to have that person be offshore. And your large enterprise, you require buy-in, but I don't think there's any real pushback from having someone not in the office anymore. I'm sure you'd probably agree. There's been a trend.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say, definitely from like our client base, the larger enterprise, it's probably it's definitely easier for them to come to a decision around getting started. I think the smaller enterprise, that's where in our experience, or in my experience mainly, you do have more of got to consult the team before making a decision to go live. Like when you've got 1 to 10 staff, 5 to 10 staff, and it's quite a tight-knit group still, and then you're implementing a tool that is a little bit outside of the comfort zone of everybody that exists within it, then I think it would be encouraged to get buy-in. And by buy-in, it can be achieved a few ways. It can be, pre-engagement. It can you can come to a decision as a team that we need resource for this, and this. So let's look at our options. Onshore is way too expensive. Can't find the right talent locally, so we could look at offshore. You can have team members who are going to work with the offshore staff member, be a part of the recruitment process itself. Like that's something we do quite a bit. Mm-hmm. That's something that we encourage pretty strongly, is to have any personnel that are going to work with this offshore team member be a part of the recruitment process, meet the candidates, be a part of the final decision making. And I think, if you do that and do that well, as a business leader, you're not going to come up against the resistance to offshoring, essentially.
True. True. I think another myth to maybe dispatch through this is that the only reason people go offshore is to save money. This is rife in the industry and something that I actually can't stand. I think we've done really well in trying to disprove that myth, because my belief is that the cost benefit is a secondary benefit to the increased output and the productivity that it can generate inside a business, right? Like we've seen it time and time again where someone comes in and says, you know, oh, I need to save $1, and they go offshore and they think it's easier, and that fails, versus, hey guys, I need high outputs within my team. Let's go offshore and let's find some rock star talent that can really, really crank up and set the bar for the rest of the team, right?
Yeah.
And I just think it's an important myth to kind of to voice, but also to throw out there that it's not necessarily true. You know, it's not Google. You know, Google outsources a lot of their stuff, but it's not necessarily that they can't hire onshore. They're the richest company, one of the richest companies in the world. Is that they can't find the talent and the quantities of talent that they require to service, you know, finance and accounting or payroll or whatever that may be.
Yeah, there are so many facets to it, I think, as primary reasons, you know, and in the last couple of weeks, we've done quite a bit of testing with market message stuff. And when you look at kind of the messaging that has gone out, the cost saving or the arbitrage on cost has always been like a secondary kind of, oh, and by the way, company did this, this, and this. It's all, you know, we've always predominantly led with, you know, talent density, hashtag Orin's favorite 2 words. You know, ease of recruitment, having a scalable plug and play recruitment engine that you can tap into. Oh, and by the way, you could save up to 40% on labor costs, right? It's always been it's not something that we lead with.
The actual recruitment side of it is something I want to double click on, because I was on a sales call yesterday talking to a very large wealth management company, an investment bank company in New Zealand, and talking to their head of accounts payable, right? That's how big they are. They have a head of accounts payable because they have that many invoices that come in. And what got her most excited when I explained the process to her was that it was the ease of recruitment. And that's saying something when the most exciting thing for her wasn't necessarily the cost savings or the extra output. It was that their internal hiring policies and processes were so strict and tough and, you know, hard, and they couldn't find CVs, and they couldn't, you know, they had to go through HR and recruitment and all this kind of stuff to say, hey, we actually help you write your CV. We actually go and do the shortlisting for you. We actually do the skills assessments for you, and we just hand that over to you for you to make a decision. It was like night and day for her. She was like, it's hard not. She literally said it's hard not to get excited when it sounds so easy to find someone who can, you know, help me with these invoices. And I was like, well, that means I'm probably doing a good job, but it literally is that easy, right? Yeah,
I did some research about a month ago on this, on how much time, you know, a typical kind of recruitment campaign for a finance manager or whatever requires to find a solid candidate to be able to make a decision on. And it was something like 34 hours of time is required by the leader in the business to communicate role responsibility, to then signing off campaigns, to then doing first level interviews, then second level interviews, then making choices on good fit. Oh, and then you've got negotiations to do. Like, that all adds up. And if that's a 200K a year CFO, you know, all of a sudden you're looking at a pretty pricey recruitment campaign, lots of time, energy, brain space gone, versus kind of how our process runs. I think it's something like 2 hours max, 30 minutes for a collaboration, an hour and a half doing interviews, choose the best fit.
That's insane. That is actually 34 hours of recruitment time. And I can't imagine it would be much less even if they were using a recruiter who would probably be charging 15% of their salary to even find the person. Maybe take 10 hours off that process, but you still got to communicate and you know, that's actually insane.
It's disgusting, hey.
That's actually
but it's that sort of stuff that people don't take into account. Yeah. The tiny specifics that do, you know, have a massive. You're hiring 10 people a year.
You see,
it's almost 2 months worth of productive time for your CFO just trying to fill roles. just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense.
That's that's eye-opening. That's actually really eye-opening. One thing that could be quite cool to talk about is what roles we've seen be really, really successful in the Philippines and why we think they're successful. Because I feel like some people who are thinking about going offshore don't actually understand the level of talent that is there. Like, maybe because they don't understand the geography and the size of the country and the actual infrastructure, the education infrastructure and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It can sometimes be a little bit daunting to think, here in little old New Zealand, I can tap into a globalized talent pool that is 10 times larger, probably actually 20 to 50 times larger than New Zealand, and also has been trained by some of the largest, most advanced companies who have all adopted offshoring beforehand, right? So maybe we could go through a few roles that we've seen work really well. Maybe your top 5 and I'll smash my top 5.
I think the most obvious one, and this could be just from a place of bias, is the finance accounting space. Obviously, that's where we started offshoring as a offshoring user. That's where our journey began, is we went to look for offshore talent for our own business in the finance space. And let's face it, it wasn't difficult to find really strong, reliable talent. You could almost get overwhelmed at the amount of talent that exists, really. So my experience, finance and accounting, really, really strong for the Philippines specifically. From transactional stuff right through to, head of finance manager. I think there are a few contributors to why finance and accounting talent is so strong in the Philippines. And I think the first one is that they've got one of the most difficult CPA programs worldwide. I think for those young, up and coming accountants to be, like, it's a really, really strong, difficult CPA program that is becoming more and more difficult year on year. So I guess what the output of that is, with such a strong CPA program, those that do make it through, are well versed, they're capable technically, and then it's just kind of like the business nuance, understanding that they need again, and what better opportunity than to step into like the world of offshore and outsourcing to do that. Or like you said, you've got these massive behemoth companies, been around for 30, 40 years. They've got, they've probably got their own accounting programs within the business itself for people to kind of step into and walk through. And out the other end, you just get this treadmill of really strong finance talent.
Yeah. I double down on that as well, in the sense that the Philippines, I feel like, are really good at like processing via systems. Like, once they understand a process, they can, the culture is it just picks up process really well. If it's a well-defined process, they will just absolutely go through it, and power through it. I mean, we've got clients that will process over 1,500 invoices a month, and that's with no OCR or no automation in it as well. And they've got a couple of offshore staff like helping them get through that. So I think anything process driven, just with the culture, is really, really strong. So when that comes to accounting, you'd agree, Alex, this is like AP, AR, bookkeeping, end of month closing, trade account reconciliations, bank recs, balance sheet recs, like anything accounting wise is super strong. That's why we see the accounting industry, the accounting firm industry pick up offshoring is such a viable tool for them as a business, right?
Yeah. And then I think, the higher level finance stuff is where you need to engage with the business, you need to engage with stakeholders, you got to have conversations. And the other reason that the Philippines is so strong for these kind of roles is also because their English is really, really strong. Like that, from reading and writing to the accent itself is quite a friendly accent versus other regions that you could go to. And I think that, coupled with this progressive accounting nature, it pairs really well. And a third observation, just to be greedy.
Ooh, stop it.
As a like a contributing kind of facet to Philippines being strong in this space, is that I've observed a lot of the talent that flows into the outsourcing space are quite young and progressive. You know, you look at our team, we are definitely more of a younger demographic, you know, wants an opportunity, wants to get the foot in the door, you know, doubles down on the technical stuff, puts the work in around the language, the communication stuff. And I think it's just a perfect concoction for those businesses that are growing and want to build high-performing teams that are there for a long time, not just a short stint.
Agreed.
I think that's where the Philippines is super strong.
Agreed. I think, quickly just rolling off some other roles that I've seen work really well. Customer service is obviously a good one, first level customer service, even second tier customer service, marketing, graphic design, video editing, assistants, so personal executive assistants, which a side note I think everyone should have.
You're going to get cancelled if you don't say like podcast producers.
Oh yeah, podcast producers, producer Andrew and video editor Lester, who are sitting here at the moment. Like anything where there's not necessarily a necessity to sit in an office and handle a bit of paper can literally, be sitting offshore. I think is the filter that I put these roles through. Like if you don't have to stamp a check or, open the mail, and even then you can outsource that to providers who can open your mail and scan it into you. So there's multiple ways to kind of go about that.
What about like sitting at the front desk looking really interested in what you do? There aren't too many of them roles now, actually.
No, maybe for your law firms.
But even then, like, do they look interested? Not so sure.
Let's not.
Car dealerships.
Yeah.
Probably still hold space.
Yeah, totally.